All right, so I just want to make a quick video just to sort of start to introduce to you monohybrid crosses, which just introduces it in 18.1, and then we'll go further into it in 18.2. So we'll talk about these as we start the genetics section in chapter 18. So I'm just going to refer to a couple questions starting on 602. So page 601. 601 and 602. We'll start with 601. So we'll look at the sample exercise first here in the blue box. So a breeder crosses a pea plant with wrinkled seeds and a pea plant with round seeds. She knows that the plant with round seeds is heterozygous for the gene for seed shape. The allele for round seeds is dominant over the allele for wrinkled seeds. Determine the expected genotypic ratio and phenotypic ratio of the progeny. So lots of things going on there. So what I like to do with these is just say, okay, well, dominant, right? That's having round seeds, dominant R, and lowercase r is recessive, is having wrinkled seeds. Okay, so starting with that, so we've got a plant with dominant, showing the dominant gene of round, and in the second sentence it says she knows that the round seeded plant is heterozygous for the gene. So that means that plant, its genotype, that's like its code, would be like that, right? So that's genotype. Phenotype meaning that it's round, right? So that's one plant, and we're going to cross that with a wrinkled seeded plant. So that's genotype. And just a reminder that phenotype, I'll put that here in green, the phenotype would be the fact that the first one is round, what it looks like, and the second one is wrinkled. That's phenotype. There we go. So we have that set up, so that's the cross right here. Determine this expected genotypic and phenotypic ratio of the progeny. So what that will look like, we'll use blue over here. So parent number one here has both alleles, the genes, both genes that it could give to the progeny, to its offspring. So parent one can give a dominant and a recessive. Parent two can only give a recessive. So you'll see in the textbook that sometimes they put two of these little r's, but you don't have to because it is redundant. You're going to get the same thing in the same ratio, so it's fine. You can just, I usually just do one. So that's what we call the Punnett square. So it's a monohybrid cross, meaning we are just evaluating one trait. So we're crossing the round seeded parent with the wrinkled seeded parent. The wrinkled seeded parent can only give the wrinkled allele. So the genotypic ratio, so these are their genotypes. So the genotypic ratio would be 1:1. Genotypic ratio would be 1:1 because there's one of each. And the phenotypic ratio would be the same because this would be a round progeny, that would be a wrinkled progeny or offspring. So phenotypic ratio would be 1:1 as well. Sometimes it's the same, sometimes it's different. It just depends on what you have from the parents. So that's the first example. Example 2 on the next page. We'll just flip over. So they're saying for the cross shown in figure 3, what is the probability that the offspring will have a phenotype of wrinkled seeds? So we need to express our answer as a percent. Okay. So the cross that they're showing, and this is on 602. Let's do a couple more questions on 602. The cross that they're showing on 602 are two heterozygous parents. So there's one, and that's a gamete, right? We'll use all that terminology. So this is one gamete from one parent that's heterozygous, another gamete from another parent that's heterozygous. So we have this cross. We're just putting the letters together, right? Dominant, recessive, recessive, recessive. So there we go. So the question is, for the cross that's shown there, what is the probability that an offspring will have a phenotype of wrinkled seeds? So the last question told us that capital R, dominant R was round. little r is recessive. That's going to show wrinkled. So this would be our one wrinkled, right? These right here would all be round, round, that's round, these are all round. So that's all phenotype, wrinkled. All the words, what it looks like is phenotype. The codes, the lettering is the genotype. So the probability that the offspring would have a wrinkled seeds will be 1 chance out of 4. 1 chance out of 4 to be wrinkled. Right, so 25% in percentage. Right. So that's that one. We could try a few more. I think the next two, these ones in the practice box and the yellow box, they're somewhat the same. I might leave you with the first one. The ratio on that, if you just look at the Punnett square, the phenotypic ratio, notice how they're actually all the same. Like you have heterozygous for T, and that's for tall. The Punnett square of a monohybrid cross between a homozygous tall plant and a homozygous short plant. So all the progeny would be heterozygous for the trait. So the phenotypic ratio would just be 1, right? And well, that's kind of the same in the second one. So the second one has a bit more to it. So we'll do the second question. So practice question 2 is what we'll look at to round out this intro to monohybrid cross. So practice question 2 on page 602. Using a Punnett square, determine the expected phenotypic ratio and genotypic ratio of the progeny of a cross between a pea plant that is homozygous for the white allele for a flower color and a pea plant that is homozygous for the red allele. So remember, always when it's capital, that's your dominant. They don't even have to state it, but that's what it is. The lowercase will be your recessive, when it's white. So in this case, lowercase r is white, uppercase r, dominant r is red. We are crossing cross between a pea plant that is homozygous for white. So homozygous for white, homozygous means they're the same two alleles. Cross by pea plant that is homozygous for the red allele. So that means we've got 2 dominant alleles, so that makes them homozygous dominant. And this is homozygous recessive. That's how you could say that. So red, so phenotype would be, this would be a red, this would be a white. And the blue ink there is genotype. So what is the genotypic ratio and phenotypic ratio? So we're going to cross these 2 individuals. We'll put it over there, use a different color. We'll use green. So parent number 1 can only give a recessive, we'll put them there. Parent number 2 can only give a dominant, right? So when you cross those, you just get heterozygous, right? And it's irregardless whether, like I could show you, right? You could put both of them there. You'll notice you're going to get the same thing. So it is a little, notice how it is redundant to do all 4 of them. So you could just do the one box right there, and then you get 100% would be heterozygous red. So your genotypic ratio would be 1 because there's only one thing, right? You're not going to see a lot of questions that actually have that. So genotypic ratio would be 1, as would the phenotypic ratio, because there's no other option. Right, there's only one option that these offspring's progeny will have, so they both would be 1 in this case. Most of the time you will have 1 to something, maybe 1 to 1 or 1 to 2, or 3 to 1, you know, you'll see an actual ratio. But if everything is the same, you would just put 1. Okay, so this is just the beginning of showing you monohybrid cross. We'll do more together, and I'll probably make a subsequent video on some more monohybrid cross after you tried a little bit. But we'll continue with this idea at the beginning of chapter 18 next week.